Hey y'all, Tailored by Debbie here. This week we're going to make a cute stuffed crow. I just took a piece of scrapbook paper and folded it in half and then cut out what looks like half of a candy corn shape. That's going to be our pattern. And I'm just using some quilted black fabric. You can buy this at any fabric store. And we're going to need 2 pieces. And this is the same on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side that we have our pattern on. We're just going to fold it and lay our pattern piece down, and we're going to cut 2. And I'm going to go ahead and pin the pattern down to the fabric so we can cut this out. Okay, once you have it pinned, just get some fabric scissors, and I'm going to just roughly cut this out first. So we can get this out of the way, and then we'll cut around our pattern. All right, now that we have these cut out, I want to put a little bit of whimsical hair at the top of my crow, and I just have one of these plant hangers from the Dollar Tree that I've been cutting up and using for crafting. So I'm going to cut just one little piece of this, and I'm going to lay it in here like that and sew it so that when I turn it right side out, it'll have that little piece of hair sticking up on the top, which I think is going to be really cute. So I'm just going to take that and pin it at the top to remind me that it's there. And then we're going to take 2 pins and we're going to measure 4 inches. I'm going to leave this part at the bottom open, which will make it easier to turn it right side out. Now, if you have a fabric with 2 different patterns, like a back side and a front side, you would want right sides together on your fabric. All right, I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine. I'm going to do a back stitch at the start and the end, and I'm going to sew all the way around this and leave this part between the pins unsewn, and I'll back stitch on when I finish as well. Now, if you don't sew, you can use Fabri-Tac glue. This is a permanent fabric adhesive by Beacon. I will put a link to this in the description box below, and you would just glue all the way around, let it completely dry, leaving this part open. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and sew around this, leaving this open, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I sewed it with white thread so you could see. I did reinforce the area where I stitched in the little piece of hair at the top, and I did back stitch on each side. Now you can take this first if you want to and trim these corner areas. Went a little crooked right there. Let me go straighten that up and I'll be right back. Trying to keep it real here, guys. You know how I do on my channel. Right here, I just sewed it a little bit more in the shape that I was wanting for the crow. So we can now come in here and trim off the excess fabric. Just don't cut your threads. I did sew it with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but it really doesn't matter, just as long as you get your edges secure. Let's turn it right side out. If you don't have quilted fabric, you can use whatever type of fabric that you have. For a crow, I do recommend black or a dark brown fabric. Sometimes it helps to turn the corners. And then the rest is easier to push through. You can take a wood dowel. What I like to use is a chopstick. And you can see we've got a little piece of hair. This macrame cord is perfect for this. It's soft. It's easy to sew in the sewing machine. And it really looks cute at the top of our crow. Makes it look like he's got a little bit of, let me put it right here where you can see it better. Makes it look like he's got a little bit of hair sticking up. So now we're just going to make sure our corners are poked out, which they're rounded, so they're not going to be real pointy. And now we're going to stuff it with our polyfill. Now that we have our crows sewn together and stuffed, I'm using a large needle for the video so you can see it. We're just going to cut a piece of thread that matches our fabric. And I'm going to thread the needle. And we're going to double our thread and just tie a knot. And now we're just going to do a simple stitch, hand sewing. Now you're going to take that quilt fabric or whatever type fabric you're using and fold those edges under that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to start on the inside, pull my needle through, and then to sew this closed, we're just going to do a simple stitch from one side to the other as you're pinching this together. You're just going through both layers of fabric and going straight across, moving over a little bit each time as you're sewing. Careful not to tangle your threads. And you'll just do that until you come to the end of your open area. I'm going to speed up the video and let you watch what I'm doing, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we've sewn across the bottom, and we're going to tie a knot in the bottom. You're just going to pull through like you're doing another stitch, but before you pull it completely through, you're going to put the needle through the loop and then continue to pull your thread tight, and that's going to tie it in a knot so this won't come undone. So here is our stuffed crow, and now what you're going to do is just kind of take your hands and rock and push to try to get the polyfill right there along that seam and kind of even up the polyfill. And now all we need to do is add some eyes and a nose. And I've got some little pieces of wood that I use for a template, but you don't have to do this. You can actually use some fabric paint. You can fabric paint it on. And we're going to cut some fabric for the nose, and this is just some scrap fabric that I have. But what I like to do is use a product called Heat and Bond. I will link this below in the description box of this video. This makes the fabric fusible, so we can just iron it onto this. You can also just glue it on with fabric tack, but my material is so thin, if I was to use the glue, it would come through the material, and that's not the look that I want. So I'm going to cut a piece of fabric just a little bigger than my nose. right here. And then we're going to come over here to this heat and bond. And I'm going to cut a piece of it just a little bit smaller than my fabric piece. All right, so we've got our heat and bond, and then we've got our fabric. Now, the heat and bond has a paper side that kind of feels like parchment paper, and then a bumpy side. So what you want to do is you want to, if you have right side and wrong side of fabric, you want to lay this on the wrong side of the fabric. And by cutting this a little bit smaller than your fabric, you can iron this onto here without this sticking to your ironing mat. And I'm using a felt ironing mat, and I bought this on Amazon. I will link it in the description box below. It's wonderful. And I'm also using my mini heat press by Cricut, and I love it as well. I will link that in the description box below in this video as well. Okay, I'm turning it on high heat, and it just preheated. When this is preheated, it will beep, and it just beeped. So now we're going to iron this to our fabric for about 10 to 15 seconds. And basically what this is doing is making an iron-on patch that we can then take and cut out our nose shape and iron it onto our crow. I think that's good enough. All right, so we're going to be letting that cool, and we'll go ahead and lay down our nose, and I probably could cut at least two out of this. So I'm just going to lay that on here, and then I'm going to trace my shape onto the paper backing. It's kind of like parchment paper. We'll go ahead and cut that one out. And you don't have to worry about the ink being perfect because you're getting ready to pull that paper backing off. Now I've showed this before, but a little trick with using the heat and bond, you take a pen or a sewing needle, something sharp, and kind of score the paper with it. You don't want to score it really deep, but that just makes it so easy to peel off. And then you can see the back of this is shiny now. So you're going to want to put the shiny side down onto the fabric, and this is going to be his little beak. And once you have the beak where you want it to be, you're going to take your iron. You can use a regular household iron, but I'm going to use my little heat press, and we're going to press down to kind of set it in place, and then we're going to iron it for 10 to 15 seconds. Right, now you could paint these little wood pieces and use them for eyes. You could leave them natural and glue them on there. Or you can take some puffy paint, if you're good with using the puffy paint, and just dot onto little eyes. What I want to do is get just a scrap piece of this to practice on. And let's practice on this. This I got at Dollar Tree. It's fabric paint. It's puffy paint, fabric paint, white shiny. So I'm just going to shake it to get the paint down to the bottom. See, and that's why we're practicing. It squirted out fast. You could do this and dot. Two small little dots for eyes like that. I've also got this tulip puff paint. So let's see if that does better than the Dollar Tree. I got this at Walmart. And then, oh, that does come out better. It's not near as forceful. Only thing I don't like about using the puff paint, it leaves a little point. Another thing you can do is take a dotting tool, and we're going to put a little bit of the puff paint on a paper towel. It doesn't take much. And then we're going to take a little dotting tool. And I bought these on Amazon. I'll put a link to the set that I bought. It came with different sizes. And let's practice on here for this. Okay, I think I like that. I like the way those look, I think. Let me see if the size, I think the size would be good. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, y'all. So we see as they're drying, they're not as solid. So let's try some chalk paint. All right, this is just Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. But this is what I do when I'm going to add eyes to fabric. I like to practice on a scrap piece first. So I see now the chalk paint definitely is covering better than the puff paint with the dotting tool. So we are going to use the chalk paint, and we're going to go ahead and just dot some eyes onto our crow. All right, here we go, y'all. And I want to put them kind of close together. There's one. Let's see. Two. How adorable. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button. It really does help my channel more than you know. And click the bell. Then you'll always be notified when I put up new videos. Now you could also take a smaller dotting tool and put a black dot. Let's go ahead and dry this. Now we're just going to take a small dotting tool. I bought this at the Dollar Tree. And our Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. And I'm just going to dip this in the black paint. And I'm going to go right over here onto our little eyes and just put a little dot. Just one time. Just like that. Y'all, how cute. I think I'll redot this one just a tad. All right, and there is our cute little crow. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell so you'll always be notified when I put up new content. If you make one of these, please share a picture with me at tailoredbydebbie@gmail.com. I would love to see how yours comes out. I'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a blessed day.